This happened 3 years ago when I was in college. I was driving home from my night shift at a gas station just outside of town. It was almost 2 a.m., and it had been raining hard all night. The kind of rain where your wipers can't keep up and you start leaning forward in your seat just to see the lines on the road. I remember being exhausted. I had an exam the next morning, but I needed the money, so I picked up the shift. The drive home normally took about 40 minutes, mostly highway, with a long stretch of forest on both sides. That night, the roads were empty. Not a single car in my lane or the opposite. Just me, the rain, and the sound of the engine. About 20 minutes in, I passed a guardrail near an overpass. That's when I saw her. A woman standing by the rail, completely soaked. No umbrella, no bag, just standing there in the pouring rain, her face hidden by her wet hair. I slowed down immediately. At first, I thought maybe she'd been in a car accident or she was stranded. My hazard lights clicked on as I rolled past. But here's the strange part. When I looked in my rearview mirror, she wasn't there anymore. I blinked, leaned forward, looked again. Nothing. I told myself I was just seeing things. Lack of sleep, bad weather, a trick of the headlights on the rain. But my stomach was in knots for the rest of the drive. 10 minutes later, I started to calm down. I even turned the radio on low just to fill the silence. That's when I noticed the smell. It was faint at first, like wet soil or rain-soaked clothes, but it grew stronger, filling the car. I glanced at the passenger seat. My heart almost stopped. There were droplets of water, small dark spots on the fabric. I swear to you, my car was dry when I got in. I hadn't picked anyone up. No windows were open. Yet the seat looked like someone had been sitting there, soaked through. I pressed harder on the gas, desperate just to get home. The rain was easing up, and for a second I thought I was in the clear. That's when the headlights lit up the overpass ahead, the same one from earlier. And there she was again, the woman, standing by the guardrail. Only this time her head was tilted back, and I could see her face, pale, lips parted, eyes wide open, staring straight at me. I gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. My brain screamed at me not to slow down, not to look, just keep driving. And I did. I blew past that overpass at almost 90 miles per hour. When I looked in the mirror this time, she was still there, watching me disappear into the night. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I was shaking. I left my car in the rain, sprinted inside, and locked every door. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I went outside, telling myself I'd overreacted. But when I opened the car door, the passenger seat was still damp. I never drove that route again. A year later, I mentioned it to a coworker who grew up in the area. He went quiet, then told me that back in the 90s, a young woman had been killed on that exact overpass, hit by a drunk driver on a stormy night. Ever since then, people say they see her standing by the guardrail during storms, as if she's waiting for a ride home. I don't know what I saw, but I know one thing. I wasn't alone in that car. Two winters ago, I was driving home from my uncle's place after helping him move some furniture. It was close to midnight, pouring rain, and I was exhausted. Instead of taking the main highway, I cut through an old county road that I knew would shave 15 minutes off my drive. The road was narrow, no lights, just trees on both sides. I remember thinking the rain looked silver in my headlights, almost hypnotic. I shouldn't have taken that road. About halfway through, I saw a man standing dead center in the road. No flashlight, no car nearby, nothing. Just a man, arms at his sides, rain soaking through his jacket. I slammed the brakes, skidding until I stopped just a few feet from him. My heart was pounding. I rolled the window down an inch and shouted, "Are you okay?" He didn't answer. He didn't even look at me. Just stood there, head slightly tilted, as if he were listening for something. I debated calling the cops, but my phone had no service out there. Against my better judgment, I put the car in park and cracked the door open, yelling louder this time. That's when he turned. Not his whole body, just his head, slow and stiff, until his face caught my headlights. His eyes were wide, unblinking, like he hadn't seen daylight in years. And then he smiled. It wasn't the kind of smile you give someone offering help. It was stretched, teeth showing, too long. My whole body screamed at me to get back in the car, so I did, fast. The second I shut the door, he moved, not walked, ran, straight at me. I threw the car into drive, slammed the gas, and swerved around him. My tires splashed water as I shot down the road, heart in my throat. I glanced in the rearview mirror. He was chasing me, sprinting full speed in the pouring rain, keeping up far longer than anyone should have been able to. Finally, his figure disappeared into the distance, swallowed by darkness and storm. 10 minutes later, I reached a small gas station near the highway. My hands were shaking as I pulled in. The attendant, an older guy, looked at me like I was crazy when I stumbled inside, soaking wet. I told him what happened, that some man had been standing in the middle of the road, that he chased me. The attendant's face went pale. He said quietly, "You took the county road, didn't you?" I nodded. He shook his head slowly. "They found a guy out there years back. Wandered onto the road during a storm, got hit by a truck, killed instantly. Folks say drivers still see him standing there waiting. But," he paused, "he never runs." Not like you're saying I didn't know what to say. My clothes were still damp. My car door still had raindrops dripping down it where I'd stepped out. I drove home with the radio blasting just to drown out the silence, checking my mirrors every mile. I don't know if I saw a ghost that night. I don't know if it was just some lunatic who happened to be on that road in the middle of nowhere. But I'll never forget the sound of his footsteps pounding against the wet asphalt, keeping up with my car. And I'll never take that shortcut again. It was just after midnight when I pulled onto the interstate. The rain had been coming down in sheets all evening, the kind that drowns out your music and turns your windshield into a smeared mess, no matter how fast the wipers move. I was heading home from visiting my cousin 2 towns over, exhausted but not wanting to crash at his place. Something about my own bed felt worth the extra drive, even if it meant battling this storm. The highway was nearly empty. Headlights appeared only every 15 or 20 minutes, usually flashing past in the opposite direction. The white lines on the road blurred with the water running across them, and I found myself leaning forward, squinting, as if pressing my face closer to the windshield would help. After about half an hour, my phone, connected through the car's Bluetooth, suddenly spoke. At first, I thought it was a notification. But then, clear as day, a man's voice said, "You shouldn't be out here tonight." I jolted, nearly swerving into the next lane. My phone was on the passenger seat, the screen dark. I hadn't touched it since I left. I pressed the power button. No missed calls, no messages, nothing. Must have been a weird radio interference, I told myself, but the radio wasn't on. I drove in silence, unsettled but trying to shake it off. 10 minutes later, it happened again. The same voice, calm and deep, filled the car speakers. "Slow down. You're going to miss it." I glanced at the dashboard. My speed was steady at 55. The road ahead stretched straight and empty. Nothing to miss but darkness and rain. "Okay, that's not funny," I muttered, even though I was alone. I disconnected my phone from Bluetooth entirely. For a while, there was nothing but the thrum of rain. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. That is, until I saw the figure. About 100 yards ahead, illuminated briefly in my high beams, someone was standing on the shoulder of the road. They weren't holding a thumb out or waving me down. They just stood, drenched, staring at the highway as if waiting for something. I gripped the wheel tighter. Picking up hitchhikers at night was already something I'd never do, let alone in a storm. As I passed, I tried not to look, but curiosity got the better of me. I glanced over and my stomach dropped. It was a man, tall and gaunt, his clothes plastered to his body. But his face, it wasn't right. It was blurry, like my eyes couldn't focus on it, as if he were hidden behind the same streaks that covered my windshield. For the briefest second, I thought his head turned to follow me. My heart pounded. I drove faster, not daring to look in the rearview mirror. Then my speakers crackled again. "You missed it. You should have stopped." This time, I yanked the phone off the seat, powered it off completely, and tossed it into the glove box. My knuckles were white on the wheel. Every nerve in me screamed to get home, to get off this road, but the storm made the drive endless. A few miles later, the headlights of another car appeared behind me. Relief washed over me. I wasn't alone. The car stayed steady in my rear view, following at a reasonable distance. I thought maybe I'd just stick close to them until I reached my exit. But then the voice returned. No phone, no Bluetooth, just the speakers themselves. "The car behind you isn't real. Don't trust it." I tried to ignore it, but when I glanced in the mirror again, my blood froze. The headlights weren't moving right. They swayed slightly, like they weren't attached to a car at all, floating too high and too far apart. I pressed harder on the gas. The car kept pace effortlessly, lights gliding closer, until they were so bright they flooded my cabin. I couldn't take it. I swerved onto the next exit ramp, tires skidding in the water. The lights didn't follow. When I came to a stop at the bottom of the ramp, shaking, the highway behind me was empty. I sat there for a long time, rain hammering the roof, trying to steady my breath. Finally, I pulled out my phone, still powered down, and turned it back on. The moment it lit up, a notification popped across the screen. Not a text, not a call. A voice recording time-stamped just 5 minutes earlier. My hands trembled as I hit play. It was me. My own voice, clear as if I'd recorded it deliberately. "You shouldn't have stopped." The phone slipped out of my hands. I drove the rest of the way home in silence, terrified the voice would return. It didn't. But even now, weeks later, I can't shake the feeling that the warning wasn't finished. That maybe, the next time I'm on that highway in the rain, I'll finally understand what it was trying to tell me.